Welcome to the market recap presented by Tackle Trading. Get in the game.
Good afternoon, Tackle Traders, and hello, YouTube. This is Frank coming to you with the market recap for Thursday, the 21st of February. A little bit of selling in the market today, nothing terribly dramatic, but a little more selling than maybe we're accustomed to as all of our indexes closed down on the day. Not much, nobody down 1% or anything like that, but there was definitely some selling and a little bit of profit taking going on here today. It looks like in the market, just like we've seen a lot of times, at the end of the day, we saw kind of a little bit of buying the volley shot the last 15 minutes or so, as we will see when we take a look at that S&P 500 chart. But before we do, welcome everybody. Hope everybody had a great day, both in and out of the market, and you're staying warm wherever you may find yourself today. A pretty big slate of names coming out with earnings here either tonight or tomorrow before the open. Big names, Baidu, certainly a big player in the Chinese space. Intuit, Kraft Heinz, Consolidated Edison, pretty good sized utility company. Dropbox looked like they beat earnings. First reaction was positive on the Dropbox. I know that's one of Coach Tim's favorite stocks to follow. So it'll be interesting to see how this impacts. We're kind of being out of earnings season. Some pretty big names into it. Baidu, certainly not small names in their space. And good afternoon to you, Patricia, and good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to the market recap. Always good to have you guys with me, and I hope you're having a great day. Definitely a little more selling today. No doubt about that. Here we have the S&P 500 on the 15-minute time frame. A little bit of a gap down on the open, drift down, rally up, drift down. Nice kind of bounce at the very end of the day to close us out. So we are seeing some slightly bearish signals, I think, on an intraday level. Now, I don't think this translates over into our daily charts at this point in time, but we are seeing a little bit of weakness on an intraday level, I think, which just to me means there may be a little more pullback to this. I don't think it's a bearish signal by any stretch off of the 15-minute time frame, unless I'm trading that time frame. But definitely, as you can kind of see here, we've had this nice run to the upside, kind of topped out, kind of broke support, kind of that kiss goodbye type of pattern, right, on that 15-minute time frame. Good afternoon, Adita, Andy, Marie. Always good to see you guys. I hope you're doing all right. So do keep in mind that is a 15-minute time frame. I'm not trying to paint a picture of doom and gloom by any stretch, but a little bit of weakness developing on that intraday, at least in my opinion, which again, to me, just kind of means maybe I should expect there may be a little bit more of a pullback to this thing. I'm not going to be bearish based off of that personally, but certainly worth noting as you look at it on a daily time frame. I mean, really not a whole lot to see here. We kind of saw that price action on that intraday, a little bit of weakness, at least in my eyes, on that 15-minute time frame on the S&P. We look at it on a daily time frame, though. Really, we're basically where we were yesterday, right? Closing above all the averages, still well above, short-term moving averages. For me, the 9 exponential moving average coming off of that bottom at the end of the day, 28 approximately to 28.20, wherever you're putting it, still looms large above us. I think that's part of it here. We're all keeping an eye on that. A little more hesitant to jump into new trades as we kind of let that one kind of play out, right? So a little bit of profit taking here today. I'm not going to be surprised based off the price action we're seeing intraday if we do get a little bit more of a pullback. But this market has been very, very strong, as we all know. And so it doesn't take much to get people to want to buy these days. So another pullback into tomorrow to get us started next week, that would be all right with me. We'll see if we get that, though. NASDAQ, another back and forth day at that 200, closing below it here today. We've been kind of closing right at or just above it. Actually, today was the first day that we did close below that, still above that 9. This is what Coach Mark and I call a pinch, where we're stuck between two moving averages, and sooner or later, they're going to be at the same spot and force the issue. But another day of the NASDAQ just having a really hard time generating any real momentum. Still very indecisive in the NASDAQ. Saw Coach Noah on the halftime report basically say kind of what I think. Once we break through this, there should be room to the upside, but it is turning out to be a bit of a fight, maybe more so than I thought it was going to be. Still above everything. Again, as we kind of saw this develop last week, our support levels or pivot points or previous swing lows, whatever you like to call them, are still, increasing. So as long as that is intact, I will be looking at this from a overall bullish perspective. But another day of struggle at that 200 for the NASDAQ. At least it makes sense on a day like this where there was some profit taking, these huge down days of 0.35, 0.40, 0.38 on the downside, right? At least it makes a little more sense at not getting in on the action here today. Dow, very similar situation as we're knocking on that door of that 26,000 number. Not a lot of historical resistance there, but certainly a big round number to be looking at. Again, much like the S&P, just looks like it might just either need a little consolidation period or a little bit of a pullback before it takes that last run at that resistance level. And good afternoon, Tanner. Great to see you, my friend. Hope you're warm in sunny Colorado. So over in the Russell, really same situation, knocking on that door. Now on the intraday on the Russell, we're going to a 15-minute time frame here. Very, very similar to the S&P. And again, this is just something to be thinking about as you're monitoring your charts. We have seen that turnover where it's showing a little more bearish characteristics on that particular time frame. Again, for me, all that means is that's what we're seeing on that time frame, and to mentally prepare for a pullback. We know that we're fighting at that 200-day moving average, and so that's a part of it. We've got some overhead resistance, still showing a lot of strength. Pullback in the Russell would be very appealing to me if that's what we're going to get. So for the most part, not a lot has changed in my mind today in the market, but we are seeing versus say yesterday where we really weren't seeing really, in my mind, really any serious intraday bearish signals. I think today you could at least make a case that there's a few more out there. And for me, that just means mentally prepare for a pullback as the market's been bullish throughout the course of this year. Much like everybody else, I'm going to have a much more bullish posture in my portfolio and in trading. So being mentally prepared for a pullback, hopefully I don't get one from that perspective. But I think for me, it always helps. Always makes me feel a little bit better. I don't love to sit through pullbacks. Nobody loves to sit through pullbacks, though, right? So we do it. Over in the material sector, after a really strong day yesterday, working into resistance, working into that 200-period moving average, no huge surprise, I don't think, to any of us that we did take a little breather here today. I still personally really like this area and will be very open to trades in this space going into next week. But today, not breaking through that resistance level. So either a pullback to the breakout point, a break of that 200. I think both, that could be a very interesting bullish signal if we're able to take that out. I'm just kind of mentally preparing for tomorrow to not be that day. And then watch, it will be that day because that's what I'm mentally prepared for, right? That's how it usually goes. But a little bit of profit taking off of yesterday's very nice move over in the material sector. Definitely some profit taking and some pretty significant, relatively speaking, down over 1.5% today, selling in the energy sector as we're working our way back down into our old breakout point. Now, for me, I'm looking at this as, at least in theory, a potential pullback opportunity, still above all the averages, but a lot of momentum. I don't see a scenario where I feel comfortable with tomorrow being the day. This is our intraday action in the energy sector, whereas the S&P was kind of a gradual, climb to the downside or sell to the downside. We really, worked to the downside early. Had a little bit of slowing momentum as the day progressed, but not a lot of bullish conviction. I'm going to need another day. Now, I am very interested in, at least in theory, on a pullback in the energy sector, but I need a day. So hopefully I get that day, a doji, small green, small red candle tomorrow, setting us up for Monday. That would be all right by me, but definitely some profit taking and not a lot of strength even on the intraday. Very much controlled by the bears in the energy sector here today. Financials kind of fit in with the rest of the market, where really not a whole lot of activity, kind of hanging out in that same general range that they were yesterday. Not a lot here to see, in my opinion. Again, as if we look at intraday charts, we are going to see a little more weakness than we've maybe been accustomed to. That's just kind of what's going to happen when we start to see a little bit of a pullback develop, right? Overall, continue to hold support, continue to be above our moving averages. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that 200 as a potential resistance catalyst. Not overly concerned if and when we get there, but I'll definitely be watching it. Still believe there is upside potential in this sector if we're able to continue this bullish run. But it may be, with where we are in the market, we may need to take out 2,800 on the S&P to be able to get there. With the way it's developing, it's looking like that may be the way it's going to need to play out. Industrials, as industrials do, they hold up well. All right, down 0.41 today. Not a whole lot to see here. A doji, a lot of little dojis or little red candles today. That's kind of the moral of today's story. But not a lot has changed. Still showing good relative strength. In my opinion, at least, still above everything, still a little bit of room to go. A pullback would be healthy and would be perfectly fine if that is what it wants to do. I have my doubts. But hey, now that we're one candle in, maybe we get that pullback over there. Tech actually showing a little bit of strength, maybe outproducing the NASDAQ a little bit here today, closing above its 200, but still right in that same just quicksand, soup, whatever you want to call it, just having a very difficult time pushing through, gaining any momentum. I like the room. I like the upside. If we can break through that, I think it is a very appealing area. It's just not happening yet. Again, just like pretty much everything else, holding our support levels, holding our short-term moving averages. So while we're struggling, we're not really generating anything beyond short-term sell signals today, I don't think. Same as staples. I mean, we're kind of smashing right in to this old floor. At first it was that trend line, and the trend line didn't matter. It ended up being this old floor that is what's been causing the trouble in the staples sector. We continue to smack into it. It doesn't pull back very far, and buyers are quick to jump back into it. So that kind of makes me believe they want it to break out. It just has not happened yet. Next week breaking out, now that it's taken a week, for the most part, developing this, this range and finding at the same level of resistance, a break next week could actually be something I find interesting if that's what it wants to do. Really having a hard time. There is some room, though. If we are able to take this resistance, this old floor, this current ceiling out, not a lot. We do have some room to the upside, I believe, over there. And it's funny how a week ago it was not an area I liked, but now with the development, I could see me liking it next week. And maybe utilities has something to do with it. Very much like utilities, right, where we kind of bumped into that same old price point, had a hard time, but finally broke through. Not a lot of overhead. And, we've seen how utilities have responded to that, continuing to show great strength, getting closer. And we're getting very close to these old highs at around $57. These were significant points of selling in the past. Not that they're going to necessarily be it again by any means. We don't know that, but definitely an area that I think we want to be keeping an eye on as a potential profit-taking zone. One thing I know for sure is the last two times I'm in the utility ETF, I should have got out at 57, right? I don't know if that's how it's going to play out this time, but we'll definitely want to keep an eye on that. But showing great movement today, a little bit of selling, maybe a little bit of moving money from, healthcare, which is really kind of starting to have a hard time. It just seems like it's always one little thing after another. Today it's Johnson and Johnson, a little bit of bad press. Yesterday it was CVS missing earnings. Maybe just a little good old-fashioned boring utilities, not such a bad place to be right now. Of course, no resistance, and showing a ton of strength probably doesn't hurt either, right? So 57, I think, is the number to be looking at there. Healthcare really was looking pretty gnarly here for much of the day. A lot of selling in the healthcare sector. It just seems like it's, like I said, just kind of one little thing after another. And I don't think that's changed anything on our technicals at this point in time. But, it's kind of, maybe it needs a good news story. Today's Johnson & Johnson. Yesterday it was CVS earnings. But what was really interesting, if you go into it on an intraday, take all of that and kind of throw it out the window. Maybe I should go into a 15-minute chart. Yeah, that's going to be a better illustration. As we kind of approached into that old range, we saw the market do this as a whole, but we really saw a pretty good sized candle at the end of the trading day over. So it doesn't seem like anybody wanted to hold those shorts overnight, at least based off of that last 15 minutes. Not a day. I don't see a scenario where tomorrow is the day for an entry, broadly speaking, into this department. But a pullback, I am definitely interested in going into next week. Definitely going to need a turnaround candle, which means at the very least, I need one more day, right, to get that turnaround candle. Holding this breakout point is kind of that first line in the sand, I think, from a technical perspective. But really, beyond that, this swing low that we put in, just like everything else in the market, these higher lows, we have room to pull back. And while I would rather that we didn't pull back that deep, we do have room to potentially pull back into and create higher lows. So I'm still looking at this sector overall as a very interesting bullish place to go, as long as we're above here. Maybe just not quite as excited as I wanted to be. It's just the news stuff, and I don't like to get too involved in the news, but I notice when it's just kind of one bad thing after another. So, and I don't even know if bad, just not good, probably a better way to put it. But holding the breakout point today, we did see a lot of money, and a lot of traders exiting those short trades. At the end of the day, I don't blame them. I wouldn't have wanted to hold any real shorts overnight, at least from a broad perspective, with the way the market has been performing. Our friends in the discretionary sector, they are in their own weird, pinchy area, just like the tech sector is as a whole, fighting at these old highs. They've broken them. They're holding, just not generating any momentum. My suspicions is 112 is just too close. There's not a lot of room there. Right? We're at 110.50 into that next level of resistance. Not a lot of room. I believe that breaking 112 is a very nice bullish signal personally, but I think at this point in time, that's probably where we're at. At least that's where I'm at with this sector. It's just having a hard time pushing through this last layer. And I get it. I would never buy this chart today because if I buy this chart today and it can't break 112, I'm going to have to be really on top of things to profit off of the thing. Risk reward won't be there. So, I'm going to continue to watch 112 as a potential break, and I believe that can be a very interesting bullish signal if we get it. Just really struggling throughout the course of this week, generating any real momentum off of it. And again, I understand, I guess, that 112 would scare me away from that chart, so can't be surprised if it would scare somebody else away. Again, in real estate, another one of those days where we did dip down, broke yesterday's low, and once again, a lot of traders willing to come in off of those lows, actually closing us green on the day, closing up one of the few areas along with utilities that actually was able to close in the green here today. Did put in a lower high and a lower low. So now we are on this two consecutive lower high and lower low candles. That might be the type of pullback we're going to get in real estate with the overall strength that we've seen. I still don't think a deeper pullback would be bad. That was just such a fast and impressive recovery, no doubt. But it can't. Right now, traders are not willing to let it dip very far. And as soon as whatever their logic and their reasoning is, they're finding those intraday lows and they're buying it right back up. So it continues to show pretty solid strength. I do think it's showing a little bit of relatively speaking to maybe what it's been doing weakness, just in the form of creating those lower highs and lower lows. But again, that makes sense to me because a pullback, whether it's a consolidation or a little pullback or something bigger, I can only think for myself, but I would want to take profits if I was the guy who bought, the day after Christmas or on this break, or when I'm a wimp, so I wasn't really sold until this break, as you guys know. But I understand the profit taking. Not really much going on there, though. It's been impressive, and we've seen this now for several weeks, right? Where it'll dip, fairly substantially on the intraday any given day, and then boom, it's right back up and closing in the green or getting a lot of it back. So it still continues to show some pretty good strength in my mind. Communication services, I don't think we can say the same thing here on these guys, showing definitely some weakness. Again, much like tech, we've talked about this all week long, just not showing a lot of strength. Even more weakness today. Again, bearish weakness. No, bearish weakness in my mind, the very earliest can happen on the break of this support level that we put in a couple of weeks ago. So I don't think you can be bearish on these guys until that breaks. If that's kind of the first signal, if you will, that I'll be looking at. But definitely not any relative strength. Much like the tech sector, having a hard time. Google, Facebook, just not getting in the game and not willing to contribute to any upward movement. And as we've talked many times, if both of those guys are struggling, this ETF likely is too. And so more downward movement in the communication services, no doubt about that today. Still holding support, but one of those few areas that actually, again, this is just a thing. It's not the thing, but one of the few areas that actually closing below that short-term 9 exponential moving average. And while that's not a huge deal, it is a little bit of a flag. Why you and nobody else? Why is everybody else able to close above theirs? You push right through yours. Yeah, you're still above the 20, but who knows? Tomorrow we might be having the same conversation about the 20, right? So I think there is a little bit of relative weakness in here, and I'll continue to kind of shy away. As you guys know, I've generally been a little bit shy about this area as of late anyway. So keep an eye on that support, though. That's an important price point, and it probably will take a Google and or Facebook, sell to break that, with the importance they have in this ETF. But keep an eye on that support level. Right now, I think if I'm looking at this from a buy perspective, even something like Netflix just can't seem to break through 360, right? They just can't seem to do it. I think a break is going to be a much better signal from a bullish perspective. And that's what pretty much is going to have to do based off how it looks today for me to feel comfortable. We'll see where that one takes us. And good afternoon to you as well, Claudia. Oh, awesome. Glad to have you live and in person with us. Welcome. Welcome to the gang. We call ourselves the Recap Gang. We're tough compared to the halftime crew. We're a little edgier, I guess. We just don't have any oversight. That's all. So great to have you with us live, though, and always great to see you, and always great to see you guys all. It's always fun to do this with other people. And I say that I've done this for a long time by myself, and I've really come to enjoy. I'm ready at 2:30, unless the computer's revolting on me. I'm ready to go. So always great to do this with friends. Over in the VIX, really not a lot to see here. A little bit of a green candle with a little bit of selling, but really not a lot to see over in the volatility index. Dollar looking very interesting. Nice movement off of yesterday's candle. We, of course, popped off of that 50-period moving average yesterday, working to increasing here today, but kind of using that same high, approximate high from yesterday as our intraday resistance, closing just below that 9 EMA. A little upward movement. I could see someone taking a bullish position on a chart that looks like this. Now, that's not going to be me on the dollar. And much like Cody said in the halftime report, kind of hoping it doesn't happen if you're looking at some bullish plays. Usually in Forex, you don't want it to happen on Friday. You just hang out tomorrow and do it on Monday, right? But some nice movement, a little upward movement. I completely understand someone trading into that chart. For me, though, I'm going to stay the same old boring me that I usually am and say that I'm continuing to treat it like it's in its range. I'm not really interested in trying to deal with it until it comes out of that trading range. There's, it will, and it might stay here. And on an intraday level, if you're day trading Forex, that can be a lot of room. And I would completely understand some upward movement to confirm this. I completely understand the bullish argument here. But I think you guys know me well enough to know that I'm nothing if not wimpy. And so we're still in a range. I'm not really all that keen until we come out of that range. But nice movement, a little bit more off of that low yesterday. I do think we can kind of start to think that, hey, we need another candle. But if we do, that can kind of maybe develop into that higher swing low for us to give some bulls a little bit of conviction. Because not everybody's me, right? And that's a good thing. We need all different kinds in the market. Over in the metals, definitely some selling here today, and really quite a bit of selling. Now, I don't think that means anything in the broader sense. I still am very happy to be bullish on gold. But, there's no turnaround to expect, at least based off of the chart when we're talking here live and in person tonight, tomorrow. We're very bearish on that intraday. As you can see here, pretty much sellers were in charge all day long, taking some nice profits, understandably so. And that's just kind of how that works. Now, overall, still a great trend, perfectly fine. Nothing to see here except for maybe a pullback opportunity developing next week with the way it is developing. First line in the sand, I believe, will be about where we are right now. So from a short-term perspective, if I see some shift in that momentum, on the intraday tomorrow, I'm day trading, maybe there's something. From a swing trader, which is more me, I need another day, and it can pull back really to 13 still. It can't break 13. At this point in time, I think a break of 13 would be something I would call a bearish signal. Now, I don't expect to see that happen, but we will have to see a lot of selling, though, and not a lot of reason to believe that it's going to change tomorrow, other than the fact that we've seen this many times. When things are hot, when the bulls are in control or the bears are in control, they don't need a lot of reasons. They don't need a lot of excuses, right? Oh, go ask real estate. It doesn't take much. Go ask gold. It doesn't take much, right? So it should be fun to see where that one goes. But hopefully we get a little bit of a nice small body candle tomorrow, whichever way it wants to go, setting us up potentially nicely for next week. Of course, silver selling off quite a bit here as well today, off of those highs. Again, I think at this point in time, if you didn't believe that this old resistance was an area, I think you probably do believe that now, at least maybe more so. I do believe that is something to be keeping, treating with a lot of respect. A break above that, and now I believe, like we talked yesterday, that we can use these two highs off of the intraday as that confirmation. At least that's how I'm going to be viewing it. Probably not really looking at a pullback, though. If we get a pullback in the metals, the gold looks a lot better. I don't have this scary resistance level sitting on top of me. I have a previous swing high. That's not going to scare me all that much in an upward trend. Whereas in silver, I could see a great, candle tomorrow and be ready to go. I'm still going to be just scared of that resistance level until it's gone. So on a pullback level, I expect to like gold more than silver if this pullback develops going into next week. I do like the break, and I do like the break quite a bit, as you guys know, of that old floor current ceiling. But for me, that's probably what it's going to take. As long as we stay above this pivot here, though, again, overall, I will not be bearish, just won't necessarily be looking at it from a bullish point of view. Now, natural gas is going to test our patience. We've got one more day, closing right at the top of that range. I didn't watch too much natural gas, but I'm checking in the markets throughout the course of the day, and every time it inched up, I rooted against it. No, I need you to stay in here for at least the rest of this week, natural gas. It's going to test us, running right up into that resistance level for the first time in quite some time. We are starting to close above that 9, that short-term moving average. It's just a thing, but it's the first time we've seen it in a while, right? So working into an old support level. We've already seen it, sell off, pivot off of that resistance level. A break above that is going to take out resistance. Obviously, we'll be above the 9. In that scenario, we'd be above the 20. Now, with all that said, if this happens tomorrow, you're doing it without me, natural gas. There is no way that you've sold me that I can hold you over the weekend. So if you do it tomorrow, good luck to everybody who takes advantage of it. And I'll definitely be cheering for you. But now, if we can stay in this range tomorrow and come out of it next week, I think we could call that a bullish signal. I really do. With the way it's developing, we'll have to see. Tomorrow's going to be a fun day one way or another, because I'm either going to say, well, hey, we might have something on natural gas next week, or I'm going to be cursing it, which of natural gas, that's how it's been for months, so that's probably how it will be. But we are right at the top of that range. You may not agree with me. You may be comfortable holding natural gas over the weekend. I don't understand how, but again, it takes all kinds, right? And so knocking on that door, I will interpret that break, if that is what we in fact get, as a bullish signal. And I wouldn't fault somebody with a little more appetite for risk than me, at least from calling it a tradable signal. If we can stay here, work into next week, break it then, I think I would call it a tradable signal. So tomorrow, no go. Tomorrow, next week, you might actually get it. You might actually get me say there's something I could at least understand someone trading on natural gas. Tomorrow's going to be fun with natty gas, no doubt. And lastly, over in crude, little bit of selling go over here. Nothing too terribly dramatic. down less than 1% on the day, still well above everything, still above our moving averages, still above the old resistance levels, still making higher highs and higher lows. Still overall, I do like this, at least from a short-term perspective, to try to work into this $59 range. That will be our first challenge, and I think we need to kind of keep an eye right now. I think you could make an argument, and I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but that doesn't mean I'm right, and that doesn't mean you don't, that we're kind of using this high from, this little bearish retracement that we had last November as a little bit of a, there's no way I was going to not mess up a line, right? That's not what I do. As a little bit of a short-term resistance zone. So maybe this is going to end up being a little bit, more of a resistance level than I expected it to. I think that is a short-term level. I do think 59 is a lot bigger of a deal, but definitely developed a little bit of tops. Again, much like we saw a couple days ago, where we developed, the two intraday tops and then broke it yesterday. Kind of seeing that same situation develop here as well. You can see we're kind of basically using the same intraday tops as resistance. So I would expect once we push through, if that's in fact what we do, is I do expect that we'll be able to work into that 59. Yeah, can't do it if we don't break that intraday resistance though, right? No matter how you want to spin it, you can't break, if you can't break that resistance, you can't go any further up. So I continue to look at this from a bullish perspective. Personally, not really too uncomfortable with the price action here today. Don't believe it's done anything wrong. So, I mean, as we kind of look at the market today, I think probably the biggest thing to take out of it, for me at least, is we've just not seen any selling for a long time. And so anytime you see any selling, you wonder, right? We're human, and everything's kind of in the red today, except, the good old boring utilities and real estate. Is this going to be a little bit of a, bigger deal than maybe just some profit taking? Well, we don't know, right? We can't know that answer to that question. I believe if you kind of look at where we are overall on our charts, it's hard to make a real bearish argument. Yeah, I'm seeing some intraday sell signals. I will give it that. But I mean, if that's the standard that you live by, you're rarely going to be making any trades, right? And so we're still closing above everything. We do have the communication services closing below, a short-term moving average, showing a little bit of maybe relative weakness. But across the board, we're still above our moving averages. And I still believe that there's no real great reason to think that any selling that we saw today, that may lead into some selling going into tomorrow, is anything other than natural profit taking, pullback opportunity. So until we start to see some signals, that's how I will personally be treating the market. I'll be looking at it as a nice potential pullback opportunity. I do believe it continues to be a stock picker type of market, and I believe that's the market that we all want to be in. At least I know that's the one I want to be in. It's a lot easier, I think, to work in that market. The all or nothing market, you never trust anything. If you're me, you just assume you can't trust it. So, but when it's a stock pickers market, you can apply your systems, your rules, your technical setups, and that's at least where I prefer to find myself. So it's going to be an interesting day tomorrow. I'm not going to be surprised really either way. A little more selling. I do believe there are some short-term sell signals on the intraday that could lead into a little more selling tomorrow. But with the overall strength of the market, I don't think it takes much for buyers to step back in. And especially when these are just short-term intraday signals that we're seeing, not really anything on a daily level or anything like that. So really don't have a strong opinion one way or another what we're going to do tomorrow. I'm just a little comfortable, or at least mentally prepared for a bit of a pullback if that's what it wants to give me. I would be okay with that. Love to have some new pullback trades to be following for next week. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do the market recap for today. But as always, guys, thank you for joining me. It's always great to have you guys live, and I know a lot more of you catch the video after hours. So thank you guys for watching as well. We certainly appreciate that. If you are new around here, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. And be sure to join us over at Tackle Trading on Twitter as well to keep up with some of the things that we're bumping into throughout the course of the market day that we think are at least interesting enough to share with our friends and our teammates. So if you ever want to find me, you can always find me at FrankMartin23 on Twitter, and never too far away. So you guys know me, I'm never too far away. If you enjoy the market recap, it is always helpful and appreciated if you do give it a thumbs up to let us know that it's helpful and let probably as importantly, let YouTube know that it's helpful. And thank you in advance for that. If you have any comments, by all means, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. We love to hear from you guys, no doubt about that. Great to have you with us live and in person, Claudia. Awesome to see you. I hope you and everybody else have a fantastic afternoon. Enjoy the Cash Flow Club tonight to all our pro members. If you're not a pro member, get over there. Let us know. Let's get you a free trial so you can come hang out with us, see what it's all about, come be part of our team. We always have room for more traders. I've never been more impressed with the team than the awesome team that we have here at Tackle Trading, and that is on each and every one of you watching this video later, each and every one of you here tonight, all of our awesome coaches and team. It is a great place to be. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. You guys get out of here. Have a fantastic Thursday afternoon. We'll see you same time and channel here tomorrow. So thanks again, everybody. Good night.